Okay, think about that thing you really prize, something you find truly beautiful, maybe valuable, irreplaceable even.
Yeah.
Now, how long does that feeling really last? I mean, how quickly can something we hold so dear just, well, lose all its luster, all its worth?
That very question, the fleeting nature of value, it echoes through the ages. And today, we're diving deep into a story that grapples with exactly that.
We absolutely are. We're setting our sights on ancient Rajagaha and the tale of a woman named Sirima. Her story, it's been passed down for millennia in these ancient texts,
Right.
and it offers this fascinating lens on, well, enduring human
Yeah,
concerns.
we've got accounts before us from those ancient sources, Pali versions, Thai versions too. These aren't just dusty records. They're like windows into the society back then.
Yeah, societal values.
And they contain some really profound insights rooted in Buddhist teachings.
So our mission today really is to dig into what these ancient accounts can tell us about beauty, about, our attachments and that fundamental truth of impermanence.
And maybe why this story has stuck around for so long. It's quite memorable.
It really is. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Sirima in her prime. What do we know?
Well, in Rajagaha, Sirima was famous, renowned for her um, exceptional beauty. As a courtesan, she held a really prominent position.
So quite valued in that society, the texts suggest.
Exactly. And it's this very status, this high value placed on her that makes what happens later so impactful.
Right, it sets up the contrast. And it wasn't just her looks, was it? There's this connection with Uttara.
Ah, yes, Uttara, a respected lay follower of the Buddha. Sirima apparently wronged her in some way, sought forgiveness.
And that act, that apology, it led to her actually hearing the Buddha's teachings.
That's the story. And it was a huge turning point for her, a pivotal moment. After hearing the Buddha's words, she attained what's called Sotapadhi.
Sotapadhi, that's the first stage of enlightenment, right?
Exactly. Think of it as this fundamental shift in her understanding, a new direction moving away from purely, worldly things.
Okay, so a real transformation. And the accounts then detail her actions after this.
Oh, absolutely. They emphasize her remarkable generosity. First, she invites the Buddha and the entire monastic community for a meal.
Wow, the whole community.
The whole community. And then after that, she sets up this daily offering, food for 8 monks every single day, right there in her own home.
8 monks daily.
And was this just like basic food?
Not at all. The texts make a point of saying how good it was. Plentiful, delicious. Apparently one serving was enough for several monks.
Okay, so high quality, abundant.
Yeah, and costly. It cost her 16 kahapanas a day, which was a significant amount back then. It really paints a picture of, considerable wealth being used to support the monks.
Yeah, that's serious commitment and generosity. It makes you think.
Right. Now, here's where the story takes another interesting turn. One day, a monk who'd actually eaten at Sirima's house experienced her generosity.
Okay.
He goes back to his monastery and starts telling the other monks about her, prizing her virtues, her generosity, sharing the good word, so to speak.
Exactly. But then another monk hears these praises and develops this immediate, intense infatuation with Sirima.
Just from hearing about her, he'd never even seen her.
I've never seen her,
Yeah.
just based on reputation. And this desire becomes so strong that he starts, contriving a way, figuring out how he can go get alms at her house specifically.
Wow. That's the power of reputation, I guess, and projection.
Totally. And it's such a contrast, isn't it? This monk's intense longing compared to what happened to the first monk, the one who'd actually eaten there and praised her.
What happened to him?
The text says he became ill, almost right after leaving her house that day.
Really? Huh. Is that just coincidence or?
Well, the text just states it. Maybe it's a subtle pointer towards, the complexities of attachment, even in seemingly good situations. But while he's getting sick, Sirima also falls ill.
Oh, right. The texts mentioned she wasn't well. She'd taken off her jewelry, was lying down.
Yes, but even then, even sick, her generosity didn't stop. She tells her servants, make sure the visiting monks are taken care of.
Even while she's ill.
And not just that, she had herself carried out to greet them, to offer respects. The text says her body was trembling from the sickness.
That really shows her commitment, doesn't it? Despite her own suffering.
It really does. Now let's go back to that monk who was so infatuated. He finally gets his chance, goes to her house.
And sees her sick.
Yes, he sees her in this frail, unadorned state. But his mind, it doesn't go to compassion or detachment.
No.
What does he think?
He starts imagining her healthy again. imagining her decked out in all her finery, peak beauty. His mind is basically creating this fantasy image.
Instead of seeing the reality right in front of him.
Exactly. And the text is very specific here. This act of imagining, this fantasy, it triggers a resurgence of what Buddhism calls defilements.
Defilements, like greed, lust, that kind of thing. Precisely. Negative emotions, desires, things he'd apparently accumulated over countless lifetimes. It just shows how deep-rooted these patterns can be, I suppose.
And the effect on him?
Immediate. Overwhelming. He's so consumed by this mental image, this desire, that he completely loses his appetite. He can't eat the alms food he just received.
He can't eat at all.
Nope. He just takes his bowl, goes back to the monastery, doesn't open it, and lies down. For 4 days, apparently. Just lying there, refusing food.
4 days.
Yeah, the texts even mention the food in his bowl started to rot. It really underlines the depth of his mental state, his despair.
That's intense. And what happens to Sirima?
Tragically, on that very same evening that the monk refused to eat, Sirima passed away.
The same evening. Wow.
Yeah. The news reaches the king, King Bimbisara, and he in turn sends word to the Buddha.
Okay. And the Buddha's reaction?
This is where it gets quite unusual. The Buddha tells the king not to cremate her body right away.
No cremation. That seems strange for the time.
It does. He instructs the king to leave her body in a charnel ground, basically, a place outside the city where bodies were often left to decompose naturally.
Just leave it there.
Well, he also said to make sure it was protected from scavengers, from birds and dogs. But yes, essentially leave it exposed. It's clear he intends this as a teaching moment.
A very visual lesson, it sounds like. So what happens next?
Over the next 3 days, nature takes its course. Sirima's body begins to decompose.
Did the text describe this?
Oh, yes. Quite vividly. It swells up, starts discharging fluids from the 9 orifices, as the text put it. It becomes completely disfigured, unrecognizable almost, like a broken pot spilling its contents.
Grim details, but necessary for the lesson, I suppose.
Seems so, because after 3 days, the king issues a proclamation.
What kind of proclamation?
He announces that everyone in the city, except his own household guards, has to go and see Sirima's corpse. And if they don't go, they'll be fined.
He's making people go look.
Yes. He's ensuring maximum attendance for this lesson. He also specifically invites the Buddha and the whole monastic community again.
Okay. And what about the monk? The one who was infatuated and hadn't eaten?
Ah, interesting point. He was still in his despair, still lying down, still not eating, until he heard the news.
News.
That the Buddha himself was going to the charnel ground to see Sirima's body.
And that got him up.
Immediately. As soon as he heard the Buddha was going, he got up, discarded the rotten food from his bowl, and rejoined the other monks to go along.
It really shows the Buddha's influence, doesn't it? His presence was key.
Absolutely. So you have this scene at the charnel ground. Imagine it. The Buddha, surrounded by this huge crowd, monks, nuns, the king and his court, laymen, laywomen, everyone gathered around this decaying body.
Must have been quite a sight. And
No.
smell, probably.
No doubt. And it's there, with the undeniable reality of death and decay right before everyone's eyes, that the Buddha delivers this incredibly powerful teaching.
How does he start?
He starts simply. He turns to the king and asks him, whose body is this?
And the king identifies it as Sirima's.
Right. Then the Buddha gives the king another unusual instruction. He tells him to basically try and sell the body.
Sell it. Who would buy?
Exactly. He says, announce that whoever takes Sirima can have her for 1,000 gahapanas. Remember, people used to pay that just for a night with her.
Right. So did anyone offer?
Silence.
Oh.
Nobody wants her. So the Buddha tells the king, lower the price, offer her for 500.
Still nothing, I assume?
Nothing. Down to 250, 150, 25, down to 1 kahapana. Still no takers.
He keeps lowering it.
All the way down. Finally, the king is told to announce, whoever wants Sirima can have her for free.
For free. And
still, nobody steps forward. Not one person is willing to take her body, even for nothing.
wow, that's stark. The woman once so desired.
Precisely the point the Buddha makes. He turns to the monks and says, essentially, look, monks, this woman who people once paid a fortune just to spend time with, now nobody wants her even for free. He hammers home the point about how fleeting that physical beauty was.
Yeah, you can't argue with the evidence right there.
And this leads directly into the core teaching, which is captured in this famous Pali verse. Pasa sitakata bimbai, yasanati devahititi.
Okay, let's break that down. Pasatitakata bimba.
Right. Pasa means see. Look closely. Sitakata refers to something that's been painted or made beautiful, adorned with clothes, makeup, jewelry, flowers, all the external stuff.
Okay, the superficial beauty. Endamba.
That's the image or the body itself. The physical form structured with limbs, features, and so on.
Got it. See this adorned body. Then what?
Then comes arukaya. This means like a body of wounds or sores. It points to the inherent vulnerability, the 9 openings from which disease or decay can arise. It's not a perfect vessel.
Right, highlighting its fragility.
Then samusita, meaning raised up or constructed, specifically mentioning it's held together by 300 or so bones, just a framework.
Okay. And athurya.
That means it's always afflicted, always diseased in a way, constantly needing care, changing posture, eating, sleeping, managing discomforts. It's high maintenance, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true of all bodies, isn't it?
Pretty much. Then Bosika Pai, this means it's the object of many thoughts or conceptions by the masses. People project all sorts of ideas, desires, judgments onto it.
How we perceive and value each other based on appearance.
Exactly. And the final line ties it all together. Yasa nati duba hiti.
Which means?
For which there is no duba, lasting, permanent, stable iti existence or standing. It's fundamentally unstable, subject only to breaking apart, scattering, and destruction.
Wow. That's a really comprehensive dismantling of attachment to the physical form. Very direct.
Incredibly direct. It's not just about decay after death, but the inherent instability and constructed nature of the body, even while alive, and how our minds build fantasies around it.
And the impact of this teaching on the crowd.
Profound, according to the texts. It says 84,000 beings, a symbolic number meaning a vast amount, attained insight into the Dharma, into the truth of things.
A huge number experiencing a realization.
Yes, and significantly, that monk, the one who'd been so infatuated,
What happened to him?
he also attained the first stage of enlightenment, Saurabhati, right there. The direct confrontation with reality, guided by the Buddha's words, finally broke through his attachment.
So bringing this all together then, the story of Sirima, it's really this incredibly vivid, maybe stark illustration of these core Buddhist ideas.
Absolutely. It makes abstract concepts like impermanence or the dangers of attachment very, very concrete. Uncomfortably so, perhaps.
Yeah, it really drives home the impermanence of beauty, the suffering that comes from clinging to things that change.
And also the potential for transformation, the possibility of waking up from those attachments, like the monk eventually did.
We started this by asking you, the listener, to think about how quickly something you value can become worthless. After hearing Sirima's story, well, that question hits differently, doesn't it?
It really does. It kind of forces you to confront some uncomfortable truths about what we value and why.
It compels us, maybe, to look at other things. We place huge value on physical appearance, sure, but also possessions, status, maybe even our own ideas about ourselves.
Right. Things that are ultimately subject to change and decay. Everything, really, when you think about it from that perspective.
And that leads us to our final thought for you today. Just consider, what other things in your own life might you be clinging to? Things that are fundamentally impermanent.
Yeah, and how might really understanding that impermanence, maybe not just intellectually, but feeling it, how might that change how you live, what you choose to prioritize?
It's maybe an invitation, perhaps, to reflect on your own attachments and just explore this perspective on our ever-changing world a bit more deeply.